Hi friends, it's Belinda here from Be Making Joy. Welcome to episode 56 of What Brings Me Joy. This part of my YouTube channel is where I share every couple of weeks the things that I'm working on, my finished objects, my works in progress, hold me accountable for the things that I cast on so that I don't gather too many WIPs or UFOs. Today I'm recording this episode on Friday, June 27th, and I have two finished objects to show off, some few other works in progress to update you on, a new cast on, and a gauge swatch for a soon-to-be cast on, and as well as my purchases from the Fiber Festival in Olds 2 weeks ago, and a little shopping trip in Canmore. I'll be mixing up my order of things today, so if you're following a particular project of mine, you can check the timestamps down below to jump ahead and look at that if you'd like. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, I'm so glad to have you back. So what's been happening since the last episode in the last 2 weeks? As I mentioned, I went to a fiber festival in Olds, Alberta, which is an hour north of here. Yeah, Ilana, my youngest, came with me. But before we left, she had a job interview downtown. So I sat in the parking lot knitting while she was there, and then we went up to Olds. She didn't get the job, but she was very happy to have the interviewing experience. And some purchases in Olds. And we stopped in Didsbury at a yarn store there on the way back home. Not much has happened the following week, except for the usual Sunday worship, ministry school, and knit groups. And then last Friday, Dan and I went to Edmonton for the weekend. We spent some time with our middle daughter, Cassie. When we arrived, I kind of gave myself a concussion. I thought that the key fob had fallen out of my pocket of my jacket when I tossed it over my shoulder into the back of the van. I couldn't find it, so I was crawling around in the back of the van looking for it under the seats and smacked the side of my head against the center console on the roof, the DVD player console that we haven't used in 10 years. And had headaches most of the weekend. Nonetheless, we had a great time visiting with our daughter. On the Saturday, the two of them, Dan and Cassandra, participated in what's called Foam Fest, which is a 5-kilometer run through obstacles, mostly inflatable obstacles, and soapy foam coming out of everything. So it was a cold, wet, and muddy day. Like, it rained so bad on our drive up on Friday that there were times during my part of the drive that it was very low visibility, and I had to really hold on tight to the steering wheel to hold up against the pounding rain. Of course, that happened after we swapped drivers in Red Deer. Anyway, so it was cold and wet and muddy, and Dan and Cassandra had picked the first time slot in the morning. They let them go in groups, I think, every 15 minutes, because it's not a race, it's just a fun run. So 8 a.m. they started. There were not very many people there. I watched from up at the top of the hill in kind of the center of the course. So here's a picture of the view from the top of the hill. Down she goes. And then we spent the rest of the day exploring the old Strathcona area of Edmonton. There was a farmer's market, we had lunch, walked a bit, then we had a hot tub at the hotel, and then went out for supper. And then on Sunday, Dan and I came back to Calgary. On Monday, I had my blood work done, and then we went to Canmore for a couple of days. We came back Wednesday from Canmore. So, our youngest came to Canmore with us, and our oldest, Amanda, met us there. So we had a great visit. Dan did a long bicycle ride on Tuesday. He rode to Castle Junction and back to Canmore. He intended to go to Lake Louise, but he bailed early because there was a strong headwind and a lot of traffic. And speaking of traffic in the park, this summer, Canadians can get a free pass to all our national park sites. This was started by the government about a week ago. They call it the Canada Strong Pass. And, you know, it's a great thing for people who wouldn't otherwise get to go to these parks or national historic sites. But it's going to make these areas so much more crowded. They were already too crowded for my taste, but I hope other people enjoy it. I probably won't be. And I got a parking ticket in Canmore. I had registered for the parking. We did a little bit of shopping. We stopped for lunch. And then the parking had expired by the time we got back to the car. So that's okay. Another cost of travel, cost of having fun. But yeah, the girls and I had some fun. We went to the Sugar Pine Company, which is primarily a quilt shop, but it has a lot of yarn. Ilana bought some paper yarn that I'd like to show you, and I bought some darning needles. So, and yeah, we came back Wednesday. Yesterday I went to knit group and Bible study, and now Friday here I am. So I want to jump into the acquisition section first, because I want to show you these things, and then I can give Ilana back her yarn. So we went to the Fiber Festival in Olds, and as I said, my intention going there was to look for some black yarn to finish off my Tracie Cardie that I'm making for my mom. Black fingering weight 75-25 superwash and nylon blend. And I did find some at a booth, Smiling Sheep Fine Yarns. But I thought, oh, I'm going to finish my loop and look at everything before I buy it. And then when I got back to their booth, it was already gone. They had like 7 skeins or something. And there was only 1 skein left when I went back, and I wanted 2. So I did order it, and it'll be ready for me to pick up in July. They are coming to Calgary in July for a Stampede breakfast celebration at Ancient Arts Yarn. So I will pick it up then. But, well, at the Fiber Festival, there was a booth for, what's it called? The Yarn Merchant out of Didsbury Olds, which is between Didsbury, out of Didsbury, Alberta, which is between Olds and Calgary. So we stopped there on the way back home, because at their booth, they gave out cards for a discount at their store. So at the store, I found another black yarn that I thought was an even better fit. And this is it. I purchased it. It's a darker black than the one that I've ordered from Smiling Sheep. It's commercially dyed, so it's solid. It's Cascade Yarns Heritage, which is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. Fingering weight. It very closely matches what was in my sweater, very close. So I bought 2 of these there. One's already wound up, and I did a lot of knitting on it. But before we left the Fiber Festival in Olds, I also bought this from Brian Dye Works. It's called, their base is called Eco Sock. It's an 80% eco-processed organic merino wool 20% global standard recycled nylon. It's 420 yards per 115 grams. And the colorway is Cherry Cola. So I really love the purples and burgundies and blues. So it's purple and burgundy, Cherry Cola. My favorite soft drink flavor is Cherry Cola. So I don't know what that will become. Possibly a pair of socks at some point. It's like just a beautiful color. So that was the first weekend on the 14th of June. And then, as I said, this week we were in Canmore. So on Tuesday at the Sugar Pine Company, we looked at all the yarns, and they had a huge selection. Most of it commercial, a little bit of hand-dyed. And my daughter bought this paper yarn. And so it's actually paper. And I don't know what she plans to do with it. Her and Amanda were talking about paper lanterns. I don't know. But she got a blue and a pink. I'm going to put on my glasses and see if there's any information to learn about this. Called Creative Paper. Its recommended hook size is 4 to 5. It's, even with my glasses on, this writing is so small. Germany. It's from Germany. That's why I can't read it. The only word I recognize in there is Germany. Oh, it also says UK over here, so I don't know what that's about. But maybe if I get bigger on the screen, we can read it better. I don't know. Nonetheless, it's paper. Very interesting. And at the Sugar Pine Company, I found something that I had been looking for. What do they call them? Finishing needles. And one keeps falling out. And they're designed, oops, goodness gracious. And this is the smallest one. And they're designed to be very easy to stick the yarn in and work through. And so there are different sizes based on the different weights of yarn you would want to use with them. So you know how much trouble I have threading needles, so I thought this would be easier. So yeah, I think that's all my acquisitions from the last 2 weeks. I think. So let's move on to finished objects. By the way, speaking of acquisitions, I don't think I showed you this shirt that I bought about a month ago from Ancient Arts Yarns here in Calgary. Yarnivore. My purse knitting I got finished. I got the second sock to the start of the toe while Ilana was at her job interview. So naturally, I finished it off at home that night. These are the Booble Socks, patterned by Nancy Wheeler. I'm going to put one on a sock blocker for you. So this took longer than I intended. I finished the first sock back at the end of April when it was my airplane knitting. And then as my purse knitting, it didn't get a whole lot of work done until this past week. So ta-da! It's done. 2 socks. So it's the Booble Socks pattern by Nancy Wheeler, which was her breast cancer fundraiser back in April. And finger and weight yarn. I don't remember the details about the yarn that I'm using. I'm sorry. I know I did mention it back when I started these in April. and it is in my Ravelry page. And the other finished object, ta-da, is the Papillon Shawl pattern by Marinja Knits. I'll put the name on the screen because I can't pronounce it. So I told you last episode that I was going to focus on getting this one done. This is my oldest works in progress. I started the bind off on Wednesday as we arrived back home. And finishing that bind off took a while. It's knit from this point out. So the bind off is this very long edge. And it took a while because sure enough, the cat kept jumping up, crawling into my lap. He really wanted attention after us having been away. But the ends have now been woven in. It's ready for a bath. It probably has collected a bit of dust over the past 4 years. And a good blocking will help spread it out beautifully. I'm curious to see how much it will grow when I block it. So I will measure it before I block it and measure it afterwards. But I won't be blocking it before this video is posted. It's going to take forever to dry. It's so thick. I used a DK weight yarn instead of the required fingering weight yarn. And while things dry really fast here in the winter because it's so dry here, in the summer my husband has the air conditioning running constantly. So it's adds a little more moisture to the house. So it takes a little bit longer for things to dry. So, but I will include a picture of it spread out before I block it. The yarn I used in it was a DK weight. And loops and threads from Michael's, which is, well, this one was called Cozy Wool Merino, which I don't think they make anymore. I haven't seen it at our local Michael's anyways. It's a 55% superwash merino, a 45% acrylic. So larger than the pattern calls for. My first one that I made looked like this, just exactly like this, because I got it as a kit from Mary Maxime, Canadian mail order company. So that was the first one in fingering weight, and then I went out on a limb and did this one in the DK weight, and it's going to be so warm, cushy, it's so squishy. Oops, I'm inside out. So now I need to finish unpacking my project bag, which is a bag that our new duvet came in. And it had the little plastic pocket where I had the pattern. So to clean it out, putting the needles and yarn away, and here's how much yarn I've got left. What am I going to do with that? Anybody want it? Now let's talk about my Tracie Cardie pattern. I'm still expecting to release this pattern on July 1st. And when that happens, I will come back to this video and post a link to it in the description box. My first one is on the mannequin. Was designed in memory of my sister, Tracie. And now I'm working on one for Mom. And I'm showing you the inside. Let's fix that. There we go. So I've spoken extensively about it. I'm really pleased with those upside down hearts. They do show up better on the mannequin one. I'll insert a picture of the finished one as I'm wearing it. My first sample was done in Socknado from Ancient Arts Yarns, which is an 80% superwash 20% nylon. This one is slightly thinner yarn. It's 75% superwash, 25% nylon. The colorway was from Blackbird Knitting and Needleworks in Leduc, Alberta from a couple of years ago, called Red Wing Blackbird. And then I matched it with the solid black, the Cascade Heritage that I showed you in my acquisition section. So the body is finished. I'm ready to cast on for the sleeves. It's rolling, but there's the button band. And here, let me... Of course, it's going to continue to roll until it's blocked. But the button band is in a broken rib, which helps the stockinette to lay flat. And the broken rib in the bottom. Not that you can see it in the black. There we go. And yeah, I'm ready to cast on for the sleeves. So I'm eager to wind up the second skein of what I bought. I have this much left of the first skein, but I'm going to start with the second skein on the sleeve so that hopefully I don't have to join a new ball midway through the sleeve and have extra ends to weave in. Yeah. I don't think there should be a color match issue between the two skeins because they are commercially dyed. Even though, if there is, the other, you won't see the difference when they're this far apart between the sleeve and the button band and the waist. But no, I think they're going to be absolutely perfect. So, a bit about the construction of this is top down, starts with a cast on. I think I used a cable cast on in it, though, but there is a structure in the neck, and then later you're picking up the stitches to finish the neck. So it's knit top down so that you can use your special skein first and then see how the colors play in that to decide which solid to pair it with. Like this could have done well with a red or a yellow, but I think the black is the best. Especially since I'm sticking with the theme of Red Wing Blackbird for my mom. Okay. So yeah, pattern release July 1st. I'm using 4mm needles. Don't remember off the top of my head what the gauge is. Fingering weight. And all the details will be in the link below. Another WIP that I've done a lot on, actually a new cast on since the last episode, because I finished my Booble Socks. I needed a new purse project, so I started another sock. And actually I've got both socks on the go. I'm working on them in tandem. One in my little drawstring bag for my purse, and one in my at-home bag. And okay, the pattern is Fruit Socks, which goes with the yarn by Premier Yarns. Do I have the label? Yes, here we go. Fruits by Premier Yarns, and it's 93% acrylic, 7% PBT. I don't know what that is. I assume it's a nylon equivalent, probably plastic, as acrylic is. But anyway, the pattern is also by Premier Fruit Socks. It's a free download. I downloaded it from the Mary Maxine website, but I have a link here to Premier's website as well, which is also, I purchased the yarn from Mary Maxine. So anyway, I got two on the go. I was working on them in tandem. What I did was I started the toe of one first on my long needles. I started the toe and then transferred them to my 9-inch needles to work the foot in my purse. So during my visits with my daughter and whatnot, it got done up to the start of the heel. And then at that point, I moved it back to the long needles and put the other, And somewhere in between there, I had started the other toe on the long needle. So I switched them back and forth. And now my second toe is on the short needles. And my heel is being worked on the long needles. So this is going back into the purse for purse knitting. And at some point soon, I will finish this heel and then put it aside for purse knitting. So the heel is one that I've never done before. It's a Turkish heel. So the foot's knit, and then a heel flap is knit to the end of the heel, and then it's turned, and that's a very unique heel turn for me. So it's a Turkish. And I did have trouble with that heel turn. It wasn't falling in the center of this flap. So I took it apart and tried it again, and it still was off center. So in the end, I decided the pattern was wrong, and I went one less stitch to where I started. Instead of going 15 stitches and starting the turn, the pattern said to go 16 stitches for the size I'm making and do the turn. But it wouldn't work. Going 15 stitches and then starting the turn worked. It centered it. So now the next step is to pick up stitches all the way around on the side of the heel flap and knit the foot. There is no gusset. It's just because the flap was decreased down to 4 stitches, and now we pick up the 12 stitches on either side. We're back to our original stitch count, and we just knit again. So we'll see how that fits without a gusset. I have a picture of it on my foot at this stage, so you can see how that looks. So yeah, this will stay in my office, and at some point I will pick up those stitches and get the leg portion started. And then the other one is in my purse for purse knitting. So we'll see how that goes. And then in between my travels, I got my temperature scarf brought back up to date. Well, on Wednesday, I got it caught up to Tuesday's temperature. So I can't actually do the day's temperature until the next day, until I've got the record from AccuWeather.com of what the high actually reached on that day. So I'm using the high temperature of every day. So it started January 1st. I'm up to June 24th here. Still using the same yarns that I started my first temperature blanket with in 2020. And after 2 temperature blankets and 3.5 temperature scarves, I've only had to replace a few of those colors, but most of them were large 1-pound skeins that came to Calgary with me in 1997. Most of them were from Sellers, which is a store that has not existed in Canada since 2013, or it did exist in 1 or 2 locations for a little while after that. But anyway, so that's how old these yarns were, and there's still lots left. So I'm still working through them. And each temperature scarf now I will attach to the previous years to eventually have a blanket where we compare the temperature in Calgary from year to year. So from January 1st to June 24th of 2025. So I started to share my WIP count update with you, tell you what the number was, and then I remembered there's another cast on that I didn't show you. Right after the last episode, I started working on my contest entry for the Knitting Guild Association's contest, designing a pillow. The entry, I think, is October 1st is my due date. So I have the pattern written, and I've started knitting on it. And it's a sailboat design in Tarsia, and then it'll be surrounded by a frame. Now, I'm not going to stick with this light gray. I decided it's not working for me, but I'm trying to decide now between doing a dark gray frame, which the colorway is called Slate, or an ash brown frame. I'm trying to decide which shade will make a better frame. So that's all I'm going to tell you about that, because it is a entry for a design contest, and I know some designers say you shouldn't share any of your secrets, but this is my diary and I'm sharing. So that brings us to our actual WIP count. It was 8 at the end of the last episode. I finished the Papillon Shawl and the Booble Socks, but I started the banana socks and the Sailboat Pillow. So I'm still at 8. My finishes and my cast-ons even each other out. So my WIP count is still at 8. Now, what are my upcoming plans, you might ask? I will be casting on something new next weekend and bringing my count back up to 9. I told you I was looking for a summer top project to use up from some yarns from my stash. Well, the ladies at my local yarn store, my LYS, local yarn store, Ancient Arts Yarns, where I go to knit group, have been making demos for an upcoming knit along that a lot of yarn stores are participating in. So it's organized by a well-known designer, Marie Green, and she has been doing this challenge for 9 years now. The first weekend of July, she challenges herself and anyone who wants to join her to knit a sweater in 4 days. So it's usually the long weekend for her. So on July 4th, the pattern is released. I pre-purchased it, so I've got the details about how to swatch, how to choose my yarns. So it's not actually a sweater, it's a t-shirt. Here's a picture of her first finished one. It's called the Astro Pop Tee. And if you know, you know. You might recognize this as a certain candy from the 80s. Although I don't know how widespread the candy was, but I recognized it as the Astro Pop, especially with her colors. So I'm swatching yarn from my stash. I want to use some of that bamboo yarn, Lion Band True Boo, that I went overboard buying years ago because it is so soft. The downside is that it stretches. I bought, let's see, this one honeycomb is full of True Boo. I bought so much of it back when I designed my turnpike tee and my turnpike skirt. So I have lots of the gray left, this one. So that will be the lower half of the body. Assuming the gauge actually works. I just finished knitting this swatch at Knit Group yesterday, but I haven't actually got out my ruler and did any measuring. Or ideally, I want to wet block it and measure it again. But what I'm hoping is this will be the bottom half of the body. There's a white in there that will be the top half, but I haven't chosen which color to use as the stripes. Probably a purple. I think I will start with the smallest gang and weigh it and see if it's enough. So yeah, so knowing that over time, like each time I wear my turnpike tee, it has stretched a little bit more. So knowing that, I'm going to knit the smallest size that could possibly fit me. I always wear a camisole tank top, built-in bra underneath any shirt. At any rate, I will be casting on the Astro Pop tee before I podcast again. Hopefully with this yarn. If not, the ladies at the yarn shop have used, one of the ladies has used Nettle Soft DK, and I have a little bit left over from my seafoam top. I would just have to buy one more color, enough for the bottom of the body to go with it. But yeah, I'm hoping this one works. So yeah, and And also for the month of July, I'm going to sort of participate in the Tour de Fleece challenge. By participate, I mean dabble a bit each day. Tour de Fleece is a play on the Tour de France, which is a big bike race throughout all of France that takes place pretty much the whole month of July. So for several years now, spinners have been using it as a challenge to do more spinning or learn new skills in that field. And many shops or guilds create teams or do specific things. You might remember that I took a class last October at the PEI Fiber Festival on drop spindle spinning. And I have the spindle that came with that class, and I did buy another spindle since that. But but I haven't actually done any spinning since that class. So I want to give it another go. And Ilana has agreed to try also. So I will look for some tutorials to refresh my memory and also to share with Ilana. And we will start working on that on July 1st. Although I am a little bit afraid that I might be jealous if she's better than me. And in the latter part of July is Sock Week, organized by Nitty Natty of the Love and Stitches podcast, who, by the way, is touring yarn stores and national parks in Canada this summer. And I'm a big fan. So I will link her Nova Scotia video in my show notes below, because that just came out. Nova Scotia is my home province. Although I've been in Alberta longer now than I've lived in Nova Scotia, it's still my home province. So I'm going to insert that. The Nitty Natty does Sock Week every July. And so that's where a challenge where we spend 1 week focusing on knitting socks. So that's my plans for the next little bit. And I guess that concludes this episode. So thanks for watching. And if you've enjoyed my work, please hit the like button so that more people can see it. It helps my channel to grow. And tell me in the comments what's been bringing you joy this week. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments or message me. You can find me everywhere as Be Making Joy. So until next time, happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy beading, happy reading, writing, embroidering, sewing, baking, whatever it is that you like to do, go make some joy.